Welcome to the June session of the Sustainability Practice Group. My name is Richard Moore, co-chair of the CSI Group. Fellow co-chair Mark Kalin may also be joining us today. Today's topic will be Driving Market Transformation in Forest Products, Part 2 by Corey Brinkema, President of the Forest Stewardship Council, U.S. Today's format will be a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation followed by a short Q&A from the audience. As the Chief Executive Officer for the Forest Stewardship Council, U.S., Corey Brinkema is responsible for the organizational strategic direction, ensuring strong growth and brand integrity. Since 2010, Brinkema has led the largest national office of the FSC Global Network. He brings 25 years of experience and commitment to sustainable development. He has served in both technical and managerial capacities in such diverse fields as green building, renewable energy, industrial ecology, and hazardous waste remediation. Prior to joining FSC, Corey led a Minnesota-based real estate development organization in building the nation's first speculative green office warehouse facility. Corey is a graduate of Dartmouth College and earned his MBA at the University of Michigan. This session is the second part of the discussions of certified forest products. Last month, Jason Medic from SFI presented his views on wood certifications in LEED 2012. Now known as LEED version 4.0. Corey will now present FSC's certified wood system and perhaps explain why LEED only recognizes FSC certification in the upcoming LEED version 4.0 as it now stands. Corey?
Great. Thank you, Richard. Hopefully you can all hear me well. I'm going to take about 40 minutes, as Richard said, to both introduce FSC and our position in the overall marketplace for forest products in the U.S., and then we'll get into a little more detail specifically in the building materials category, which is of course why most of you are here today. We'll talk a little bit about LEED and U.S. Green Building Council, as well as other green building rating systems, and then get into a brief conversation on excuse me, the issue and importance of life cycle assessment and how that relates to forest certification. Then finally, we'll take a look at some of the tools that can be used to identify and procure FSC certified wood products. So with that, I will go to our first slide. I mentioned first we'll be covering some of the facts and figures of the FSC system, particularly in North America. So first of all, FSC, it's actually interesting that we are speaking here today with you all as delegates from around the world are attending the Rio Plus 20 conference in Brazil this week, and it's the 20th anniversary of that Sustainable Development Conference in 1992, attended by the first President Bush. I was actually out of that gathering that FSC was developed, and was largely due to the failure of governments to come together to address issues of deforestation and forest degradation. And so it was the proponents of a private market-based approach to promoting responsible forest management that out of the FSC grew. We began with largely groups of environmentalists and social activists, as well as progressive companies that came together to create the non-governmental organization that is now the FSC. So FSC was formed in 1993 and very soon after developed the first set of principles and criteria which govern our forest certification everywhere in the world. To date, we've had quite remarkable success. Now we're over 360 million acres certified globally, and almost half of that, about 45% of that, is in North America. So we just last week reached the 150 million acre figure for the combination of the U.S. and Canada. That was due to actually the world's largest certificate now by Abitibi-Bowater, excuse me, in Canada. We have FSC certified forests in 34 states now. A lot of the concentration of acreage is in the northern Midwest, New England, and California. We are growing now very purposefully in places like the American Southeast, where there's a predominance of small landowners, where the challenges in making certification accessible to the small landowners is something that we're working hard on. Many of you might not be aware, but we now have over 5,000 companies certified in North America, about 4,000 of those in the US, and 23,000 globally. And we are the preferred certification for certification by major U.S. corporations, both the Fortune 100 and Fortune 500. So if they do have a preference policy, it is almost always preferencing FSC. We're going to talk a little bit about what makes FSC different from the other alternatives out there. The most important, and it's really why we are where we are in the marketplace today, it's because of our governance system. We are an open, membership-based organization. We govern with the value towards transparent democracy. FSC is completely member-driven. We have a General Assembly of members that meets every 3 years, and also is involved in major standards and policy developments in the system. Our members also elect our board of directors. For those of you who don't know, FSC members are structured into chambers. You self-select, but largely if you're, for example, have economic interests related to the forest, you'll be an economic chamber member. We have environmental chamber members, which are largely NGO-based, and then we have social chamber members, which can be individuals or organizations. They can be in the area of community development or indigenous rights or labor and other social issues related to the forest. Our standards and policy are set through consensus-based processes, and they're open to all to come and debate and arrive at a consensus result. So with that process, with that governance set of values, FSC enjoys the support of all of the major environmental organizations, both in the U.S. and around the world. And these are a few of the logos down here: Sierra Club, WWF, the Nature Conservancy, National Wildlife Federation, the Natural Resources Defense Council, and Greenpeace are all very active members of the FSC and participate directly in the development of standards and policy within the FSC system. Wanted to make the point very strongly that in fact standards do matter, and it's the reason why FSC has its position in the marketplace. It stems certainly from the governance model that I just presented, but with that governance model, with that consensus-based process, come difficult, rigorous standards. Our standards are globally consistent based on a set of principles and criteria that are applied everywhere in the world, but we do believe it is one of our greatest strengths that we allow the indicators for conformance to those criteria to be developed at the local level. So in the case of the U.S., we have a national FSC standard that addresses the unique considerations, ecological, social, and economic considerations here in our country, but still applied to that same foundation of 10 principles and 56 criteria. FSC is unique in another very, very important way. It requires on-the-ground performance in almost every major issue, certainly the issues that are most important to our environmental and social stakeholders. So unlike other programs that are available out there, which largely are based on having either plans or programs to achieve an outcome, FSC requires that outcome. And as a forest manager, you have to demonstrate to your auditor that you're achieving that outcome. You can't just have a plan to try to attempt that outcome. You actually have to achieve it. So some of the key areas: ecological function is maintained or enhanced, rare habitats protected, and very importantly for most of the environmental groups out there, the other high conservation values must be protected on your lands. Deforestation also is prohibited. We're the only standard, in fact, that requires this, and deforestation doesn't just mean removing all the trees and turning it into, let's say, a real estate development or a agricultural plantation, but in fact we see a lot of deforestation still here in the U.S. where natural forests are converted, for example, into a monocultural pine plantation. So again, FSC does not permit that. If you have a natural forest, you have to maintain it as a natural forest. Also, very importantly, FSC is the only one to completely protect the rights of indigenous native peoples and local communities on all lands, irrespective of whether they be publicly or privately owned. FSC is also the only program to prohibit the use of highly hazardous chemicals, as demonstrated by a list from the World Health Organization. So again, as I mentioned, standards do matter, and it's one of the major reasons why FSC is that preferred forest certification in the forest products industry. Just briefly, a picture here of a few of the products that are available in the U.S. marketplace that bear the FSC label. We are not just on building materials, but we're on everyday consumer products. And frankly, I wouldn't have been able to show this slide 18 months ago. Most of these products became FSC certified just in that recent period. We've got products like Band-Aid and Kleenex and Ben & Jerry's and Whole Foods and others who are really getting that label out into the marketplace and beginning to allow us to tell our story, which is a really fantastic development. A little bit about that market expansion. We believe, based on our assessments, that FSC across the entire marketplace is actually at roughly 5% of the global market share. Or excuse me, of the total forest products market, and that's up from less than 1% in 2007. I will apologize. I just noticed here that the tick marks on my graphics here actually have it from 2000 to 2008, but it's really 2005 to present. So each one of those, the very first bars there are beginning of 2005. The last one's literally just a measurement from a few days ago, from June 15th. 2012. We are now, I just mentioned, we reached that 150 million acre mark. Most of that, both in the last, especially the last 3 years, has been due to the leadership from American companies. I know the thirst for FSC certified forest product is driving that growth in both the U.S. and in Canada. We are now at 35 million acres in the U.S. and roughly 117 in Canada. We have absolutely reached the tipping point in the office paper market, and we're very close to reaching that in the tissue market. And it's really now, we see the most significant growth coming in packaging and building products, and hopefully furniture soon to follow. Now, on the building material side specifically, it's really the U.S. Green Building Council's lead rating program and the retailer Home Depot, which are really driving that growth in the U.S. Forest certification, excuse me, chain of custody certification is another way we measure growth. We had some pretty phenomenal growth up until just this year, though we're not too discouraged, because the primary reason why we had a slight drop off this last year was because we have initiated a program to allow some of the more small and medium-sized operators to participate at a lower cost level, participate in chain of custody certification through enrollment in an FSC certified group chain of custody certificate. So while our total certificates have dropped a little bit, the number of companies participating in the system has continued to grow. One of the important characteristics of the U.S. market that we often share with, especially with our American companies, is really that our position in the market, both in terms of demand and supply, and the responsibility that comes with that. So these are just two graphs. These are from 2001, showing U.S. prominence in both the production of wood and, even more importantly, consumption. You can see here that U.S. is almost these are the top 20 consumers of forest products, and the U.S. is about the size of the next 19 combined. So it's really, with that comes great responsibility. All right, just a smattering here of some of the companies that really are driving that growth in FSC forest certification and bringing product to the market. We have a combination of retailers as well as producers, and many companies who are simply buying product for either distribution to the to the corporate marketplace in the business-to-business sector, or directly to the consumer, whether it be folks like Walmart and Target, or FedEx Office, for example, which all of their custom print jobs and private print jobs are all printed on FSC certified paper. But really just some fantastic success stories. Again, many of them in the last 18 to 24 months leading the way. All right, I'm going to, with that background, the FSC system, I'm going to switch over to the topic specifically about green building and LCA, as well as some other green building certifications and the role of FSC in those programs. So I think many of you are aware of the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED program, a wildly successful program that measures the performance of buildings and encourages the improvement of performance in areas like materials and indoor air quality, energy performance, water consumption, and impacts on the land. FSC, since the beginning of the LEED Green Building Program in the year 2000, has been the only forest certification label recognized. And back in the day, back in 1999-2000, really FSC was the only player. So it was maybe a little bit more understandable. But there were there were some others that were beginning to arrive, though almost all of them were built and originated by industry groups. So FSC was that more mirrored the orientation and the governance model that the U.S. Green Building Council employed. So it was a much more natural fit. One of the things that we hear time and again, especially from the design community, from the A&E community, is that FSC really is that both social and environmental conscience of the LEED program. It's one of the few elements of LEED that actually brings in a strong social component, and I think also that governance model that I described is something that LEED also aspires to. So it is a very natural fit for many of the USGBC members. Most of you might know as well that the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED program is undergoing one of its most significant review and revision efforts. Just about every LEED rating system is being revised, and it's a fairly significant revision, especially in the category that forest certification plays a role, and that's in the materials and resources section. There's a very significant shift to the deployment of and use of life cycle analysis and the various tools that derive from LCA. And there's an interest on the part of staff and members to bring more FSC-like certification and standards to other building material types, whether it be concrete or steel or gypsum, glass, silica-based products, etc. So one of the things we're seeing in this new draft, which actually, by the way, if you haven't been paying attention, is now being called LEED version 4. A few weeks ago was LEED 2012, is now LEED v4, and we have now seen the 4th draft of that effort. We expect to see a 5th draft now in September, and a voting on this new standard or set of standards sometime probably next summer. June 2013 is the date that has been mentioned now by USGBC staff. One of the things that I think is important for many of you to know to how we believe this current raw materials extraction credit works. I will say that through now 4 iterations, it has improved at every step in the way or in the process, but we still think it needs some work. One of the things we're most interested in seeing is that the kind of same rigor and incentive to other building materials to have those rigorous leadership performance standards and certification, that we need to improve that credit so that it continues to move these other materials along in an evolutionary path toward high standards. Right now it's potentially allowing them to kind of check in and receive credit without doing a whole lot of work, and that's something I think that FSC and you know, really everyone in the forest products industry would like to see these other building materials receive some scrutiny. One of the things that's been extremely helpful from our perspective is that the A&E community and the leading environmental groups have really joined forces in advocating that LEED maintain high standards. I mean, really, it's LEED's position and exclusive recognition of FSC that has lifted up the entire market, and is, you know, frankly, the reason why we're even having debates around forest certification because of that. But because FSC is working, because FSC is bringing that product to the marketplace now, and is achieving a scale that can meet market needs, that you know, why would you lower standards at this point in time? I don't think we certainly would argue that there's no reason to do that. One last point I'd like to make about another green building standard that's out there. Some of you may be familiar with the Cascadia chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council has created what has more or less become an alternative to the LEED program. It's kind of a beyond LEED rating system called the Living Building Challenge, and that particular program now has reached its version 2.1, which was just introduced a month ago, and this is a program that's actually pushing FSC to improve, which frankly we welcome. One of the stipulations in that program, it's actually a prerequisite, as most of the program is based on prerequisites, but it requires what we call FSC Pure, FSC 100%. That means that one manufacturer of building products cannot use what we call our chain of custody credit system to arrive at that FSC certified product. It has to be 100% derived from FSC certified forests, and so this is a great challenge to us. Very few of our certificate holders are able to provide that product currently, so we expect to see a lot of folks who are achieving Living Building Challenge certification to get some exemptions from that FSC requirement, substituting FSC mix for 100%. But we've also seen a challenge already having some impact in the marketplace. We're also hearing from a number of companies that they will begin to bring back FSC Pure, FSC 100% products and make those available to those seeking Living Building Challenge certification. So anyway, we think this is a sign of things to come, and a very positive development to have that kind of driver in the market. One of the things that we are asked is what is the response from kind of the conventional side of industry to some of these developments, and in particular to this recognition in the LEED program. And it's, we certainly the success isn't going unanswered, and we see the conventional side of industry who would prefer, generally speaking, to maintain the status quo, reaching out to their government allies, their legislators and others, through lobbying efforts, which, it's a free country, and you're able to do that. But we certainly believe that the market is talking here, and that those that are trying to lead in the marketplace and demonstrate corporate social responsibility in particular are going to be looking for leadership standards. So it is unfortunate to see this government being deployed or asked to restrain that adoption of leadership standards. It's something that we certainly are out there providing our own education around our success in the marketplace, and the fact that it's actually having real impact in the forest. One of the probably more interesting news items from the last few months was the governor of Maine was lobbied quite strongly to it essentially banned lead in state projects or use by state projects because it only recognized FSC. It was an interesting and maybe ironic development because, frankly, Maine has a competitive advantage in FSC. We have, I believe, more than 4 million acres of FSC certified forests in Maine, so the manufacturers of Maine actually have a competitive advantage when it comes to bringing FSC certified product to the market. So, yeah, just an unfortunate development. We hopefully it'll be reversed in the coming years, but these are the kind of things that are happening in and around this space that probably should be aware of. The other thing that is interesting with as LEED develops through this revision effort, one of the things I'll show you in a minute here when I discuss life cycle analysis, but two of the hot button issues in the LEED certification revision, the LEED V4 revision, is around life cycle analysis, and the two specific areas where life cycle analysis really does not address, and it's the issue of extraction of raw materials and human health, both of which are not very well quantified and are so complex that at present life cycle analysis is not attempted to address these issues. And it turns out that LEED in moving towards a more life cycle orientation has added 2 credits to the standard, one around raw material extraction, which I just explained, and another one around chemicals of concern, where it is trying to make up for that gap in data in life cycle analysis. And that now turns out to be the 2 hot button issues for lobbyists. We're seeing both the conventional timber industry upset with the FSC's recognition in the raw materials extraction credit, and now we see this quite reactionary American Chemistry Council also lobbying very hard and threatening to spend tens of millions of dollars to defeat LEED V4 because of its interest in beginning to look at alternative compounds for some of the more toxic materials in building products. So just interesting bedfellows now in the effort to defeat the passage of LEED version 4. A few things that have been probably most upsetting for us is the false arguments that are being employed in especially among those in the conventional timber industry, that somehow FSC is promoting imports simply because it's a global system, and nothing could be farther from the truth. As I mentioned, we have now 150 million acres certified between the U.S. and Canada, and that frankly is more than enough forest product material coming out of those forests to be able to supply the entire green building market. So FSC is doing nothing to change the dynamics of trade of forest products, and frankly you simply can't transport forest products that far before it becomes uneconomical. So and we've always imported some small fraction from abroad, and will continue to do so, but irrespective of whether that product is certified or not. So we're really key to dispel those false arguments, as well as make it very clear that FSC, in addition to being a program that is widely adopted and accepted by large private and large public landowners, is making a very strong effort and having some real success now with the primary land ownership category in the U.S., which is the small private family forest owner. We have now some 40,000 families that are American families that are certified that their lands are certified to FSC's high standards, and those families are delivering product to the marketplace now. In particular, success places like Indiana and Wisconsin, which have the vast majority of their forest landowners under FSC certification. So I'm going to move on to the topic of life cycle analysis. This has become a very hotly contested topic, especially with the LEED revision. Life cycle analysis attempts to identify the major environmental impacts across a product's life cycle, typically beginning with the manufacturing phase and moving on through to the consumption and in some cases even end of life phase, disposal or reuse or recycling phase. Life cycle analysis has been around for a while. I certainly worked on it when I was directly in the green building field. In fact, we chose in my first lead pilot project, we chose to build a superstructure, an office superstructure out of wood rather than steel because of the life cycle analysis that we had performed at that time. One of the challenges, and I'll explain here in a minute, with life cycle analysis in its current form, whether it's an environmental product declaration or using a software tool to do whole building life cycle assessment, is the quality of data that's going into it. We're seeing a very big rush to develop these tools, and some companies, as they begin to develop these assessments of their own product lines, often are using aggregated data for the entire industry. So it's very difficult. I mean, you might be able to roughly compare one product type to another one, but being able to compare a company to another company is very, very difficult. And it's only if you really spend the significant dollars to do an assessment of your internal operations are you able to get that good data. And so as I point out, being aware of what we call garbage in, garbage out, and just because it's a quantitative tool and it's math doesn't mean it's good math. So I just want to make everyone aware that there's good LCA and not so good LCA. As I mentioned earlier, one of the really critical issues, certainly for those who care about forest ecosystems and frankly any ecosystem, is that the extraction phase of the raw materials for products is almost always excluded. It's difficult to assess, and there are some out there who say it may never do a very good job of assessing those impacts. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try, but in the meanwhile we need to look at other safeguards. I mentioned also human health is another major category that life cycle analysis does not do a very good job of addressing. So some of those issues, especially at the extraction phase, that the life cycle analysis currently ignores are issues like biodiversity and endangered species, impacts on land use, especially land use change, the quality of water and soil resources and other ecosystem services, in addition to almost never addressing social impacts of raw material extraction. I mentioned that alliance of major architectural and engineering firms and the environmental groups around leadership standards, but you're also seeing a very strong consortium of design firms and environmental NGOs advocating for a cautious approach around life cycle assessment. And when it is employed, especially when it's employed around forest products, that FSC certification be combined with that. So you will often hear us talking, when we talk about LCA, to talk about an LCA plus FSC. And frankly, ideally, LEED would link these two as well, rather than simply having optional credits where you could just get life cycle analysis and or just FSC. We think that the two should be combined. We think that the best decisions made by design teams will combine those two. I'm going to share with you just a few slides here from a scientist at the World Wildlife Fund, a woman named Martha Stevenson, who's done some of the most robust research around life cycle assessment and assessed all of the very popular tools that are out there now for LCA. And looking at what those hot button issues around the entire life cycle of a product, beginning with sourcing, which is also considered to be raw materials extraction, through manufacture, assembly, distribution, the use by the consumer, and then the end of life. And this particular slide here is basically on a scale of 1 to 3. The kind of light colored is the 1, the lowest environmental impact. The kind of middle pink color is a medium impact, and the red are the really kind of hot spots, the greatest array and concentration of environmental impacts. And frankly, when you see this all laid out, you can very quickly recognize that the vast majority of those hot spots are occurring in the first 2 phases, in the raw materials extraction phase and the manufacture phase. And frankly, the raw materials extraction has even greater impacts than the manufacturing phase. So it's this is the reason why we have this raw materials extraction credit. So not just for forest resources, but for other resources, whether they be mined or quarried materials and other materials that come into building products, and why we need to pay attention to that phase of the life cycle. So in this second slide here from Martha, we see the environmental impacts that FSC certification addresses through forest management certification. So issues like biodiversity and biotic resource depletion, economic viability, eutrophication and forest ecosystem services, aquatic ecotoxicity, GMOs, impact on watershed and aquifers. I mentioned the land use change, the deforestation issues, and also even ocean aquatic toxicity. And then, of course, site level impacts, soil health, and then a couple of the social issues are also accounted for in this slide from Martha. So these are the issues that FSC addresses in the life cycle, a full life cycle. And then in this last slide from Martha, we're able to capture what, throughout the life cycle, what traditional life cycle assessment tools provide in terms of data and assessment capacity, combined with FSC certification. So this is looking at a generic forest product that has both a life cycle, a rigorous life cycle assessment, as well as FSC certification. So to date, this is your best combination when buying, selecting and specifying a forest product, is a combination of FSC plus LCA. One thing that I know Martha would also argue is another very highly complementary tool to add to the decision making would be a tool called water footprinting. So to the extent that you can access a tool like water footprinting, we would encourage that as well. So you'll see some more robust data beyond the raw materials extraction phase, so into manufacture and distribution, and you'll see some of the impacts on water resources, so that's also helpful. All right, so I'm now going to move on to actually specifying FSC products. I know this is an area where many of you are probably interested in learning a little bit about how we're trying to improve access to FSC certified building products. So first of all, I think what is really remarkable, even in this challenging economic environment where we're not doing a whole lot of, especially residential building, that we now have quite significant penetration across a wide range of building products, and it doesn't mean every single manufacturer is going to have an FSC certified alternative. But most of the major players out there now, if it's a manufactured wood product, you can find a supplier to meet your needs that has FSC certified wood as a component. You can also, in a very significant improvement in the availability of dimensional lumber products and sheet goods. So this is a fairly new development in our market. And as I mentioned, with that 150 million acres now certified between the U.S. and Canada, there is a significant land resource there to draw on now for those FSC certified products. That being said, absolutely, we're the first to admit that there are still market inefficiencies out there. The market is not completely liquid, and we find time and again that specifiers and customers or would-be customers of FSC certified products go to their typical supply chains, their typical dealer that they've always worked with, and now they want to try to get FSC certified wood, and either they're told they can't get it, or they find they can get it, but with some outrageous premium attached to it that makes very little market sense. So what we would argue in those situations, you do need to do a little homework, and it is really important to identify those more seasoned FSC chain of custody suppliers, those who have good access to FSC certified producers or distributors, and really can and you can compete with others to bring those premiums down. Because frankly, for your more traditional, especially the high volume building materials, there is an FSC certified alternative in almost every case, and those premiums should not be they should be in the single-digit range and not double and plus, and it's really key to reach out and to get those competitive bids. So clearly, if you're getting outrageous premiums, it's because of those underdeveloped supply chains. And just as an example, in almost every market, you ought to be able to get dimensional lumber to a project in the 5 or less % premium range. Absolutely, in some parts of the country it'll be higher than that. Frankly, in some parts of the country there's no premium. Northern California is an example. So anyway, that's again, it's not a completely liquid market, but we and others are involved in making it more efficient and increasing the competition amongst suppliers. So I'm just going to run through three tools, one that we are directly involved in, and 2 others by third parties that should begin to improve this. And honestly, all 3 of these are in their very early stages of development, and I'll explain that briefly here as we finish up this presentation, but do expect that all 3 will improve significantly over the next 6 to 12 months. So while they're highly imperfect at this very point in time, we expect all 3 of these to be pretty good tools for project specifiers. So the first one I'll mention, of course, is the one that we're developing internally here within our own system, and it's called FSC Marketplace. And this is really this is the tool to bring our entire chain of custody certificate holder base and create a web-based profile for that company and their products. So you can do quick searches based on the product desired, as well as your geography and where you'd like to source that from, ideally. This, I mentioned, is in beta phase. It's been under development for about a year, but it's only been in the last maybe month or so that we've actually begun to populate it. So we're now working to get some 3,900 certificate holders into this system. We've made it free for a basic profile in the system, and for those who choose to provide more information and more detailed specs on their products, then they can pay a few $100s to do that. But generally speaking, we expect most will choose those comprehensive profiles. Again, this will. Our effort focuses on the domestic producers of FSC certified products. FSC Canada is doing the same with their companies, and our national peers around the country are also doing the same. So if you're doing a project in Spain, for example, and you'd ideally like to find local FSC certified supply, you'll be able to do that with Marketplace. But again, we're still in the beta phase, but we expect this to develop significantly through the balance of this year, and I would say by this time next year, this should be a very, very robust tool for specifiers of FSC certified product. All right, I have a couple more slides here. Green Wizard is another tool. I don't know how many are familiar with this new web-based tool. Some really exciting and robust assessments of products. This is certainly a pay-to-play tool, but it provides really well-conceived presentation of the materials. And probably even more exciting is it gives you some fantastic documentation tools, especially if you're doing a LEED certified project. So it allows you to understand and input whether products can help contribute toward a certain point, and allows you, for example, if you're working with a product that is part FSC certified, or a product that is FSC certified wood is the one, but several non-wood components. You can add all of this information into these tools, and then it's able to calculate for you exactly what you need to do to get that. In this case, the certified wood credit. As we go forward, this will be the raw materials, responsible extraction of raw materials credit. And lastly, another quite new tool that's out there is one for the residential marketplace is the Home Depot, which has launched a partnership with the LEED program with USGBC to provide access and information regarding the products available through the Home Depot that can contribute to LEED certification and to LEED points. So I will say that so far the FSC component of this is still under development. There's quite a bit of work that still needs to be done. I mean, the entire tool is still under development, but I will say the FSC certified component is the one that needs among the most work. I just provided here a screenshot of what asking for FSC certified doors and what is coming up. So this is showing that these doors can contribute to a half of a point in the LEED for Homes program. All right, so I think with that, I'll open it up to questions from the audience, and just want to thank you all for the opportunity to provide you a little bit of information about FSC, and hopefully you've learned a little bit that you can apply in your building projects. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Corey, for the very insightful presentation, especially the LEED or the certification tools, Marketplace, FSC, and Green Wizard. Matt, are there questions on the floor?
I don't have any currently. Looks like Corey's done a pretty good job of doing the overview here. So if you have any that you'd like to do, or anything else Corey would like to add outside of this presentation, in case there's people currently typing some, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Corey, I want to thank you for showing that slide where you indicated the acreage of FSC wood. It was interesting to see that most of it is from or half of it's from the U.S. Versus other countries. That was very insightful. Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're at. I mean, quite literally, just a week ago, we went from, I think it was 145 million acres to 152 with a single company expanding their certification. I believe it was in Quebec. We just seen in the last 2-3 years here some just extraordinary growth in Canada, and frankly it's because of the interest and demand in the U.S. market that is driving that. So some 70 to 75% of the harvest and production in Canada is coming into the U.S. market. So for both manufactured products as well as for raw, more dimensional lumber materials and paper products. So we have grown quite significantly on a percent basis, fairly similarly in the U.S. But so far Canada has been the leader, and frankly for the other certification systems that are out there, that same ratio of land certified in the U.S. to land certified in Canada is about the same. What we're really excited about, and one thing that's really interesting, is that we're starting now, we're seeing a new phenomenon in the marketplace, and that's the organizations that were maybe certified under another standard, but performing well above what that standard would minimally require, that they're coming to talk to us and trying to understand what it would take to get FSC certified. And just last December, we saw a very large private landowner company called Westervelt become FSC certified in lands in the state of Alabama, I think a little bit of Louisiana, and some other southern states, I think about 500,000 acres. And quite surprisingly and interestingly, we just saw an announcement just I think 3-4 weeks ago, a company by the name of Green Diamond Resources, which is now seeking certification of their coastal California lands, and it's fantastic to see their interest in FSC, and I think it's an opportunity for them to realize and provide product to this new FSC market.
Okay, thanks for that response. Recently I went to a LEED version 4 seminar, and I heard the major reason for LEED sticking with FSC as the only LEED certification accepted is because of the membership. LEED membership wants FSC. Is that your understanding? You don't have any inside arrangement with USGBC.
Yeah, I wish we did, although I guess that wouldn't be very legal. But no, we hear the same thing. And certainly, the membership of USGBC, like the membership of FSC, is very diverse. So, certainly it's not. I'm sure it's not universally felt. There's still some quite conventional industry partners, for example, that are members of USGBC and probably feel very differently, and they have every right to. But yeah, in the end, having an open membership-based program is we think is just absolutely critical to the governance of the system. It's generally what results in the high standards. And I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it any other way, but certainly, I mean, if you take an industry like the forest products industry, and you decide you want to have a program that's open to all in terms of its governance, and you want to bring together environmental, social, and economic interests and give each one of them a third of the vote, frankly, you're going to come up with something that looks a lot like the FSC, and that's what we certainly get our strength from that kind of democratic governance, and I think the USGBC membership feels like that's, they see a kin in the FSC, and they also see, probably even more importantly, that it's FSC that's driving that market transformation. Just as LEED is attempting to drive market transformation in the building industry, FSC is the one that's doing it in forest products, and without our leadership, without that continued demand driver, we're going to go back to the status quo. So we also know that, I mean, I'll just be very blunt about it, if LEED or any other program were to open up to just any forest certification program out there, FSC will lose, and that market leadership will lose that, because in almost every case we're going to be the more costly option. It shouldn't be that much more costly, but it does cost more to be FSC certified, and I'm not talking about the direct certification costs. Those are roughly the same across certification systems. I'm talking about the having to set aside land for complete conservation protection, having to leave trees in the forest, having to not cut so close to streams and other water bodies, having to hold public meetings and protect the rights of indigenous people. Those all cost a little bit, and ultimately that is evident in the cost of the product. So, certainly as more FSC certified forests come into the system, we expect some of those costs to come down. We expect FSC, and especially for the high performers in the industry, become essentially what you need to do to be a responsible actor, and so far we're a long ways in that evolution. So it is a pretty exciting time, despite it being certainly a challenging economy and market overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you would pay a little more for organic produce. So I certainly see the reason for the upside. I'm glad you mentioned that 5% premium as being the norm and not 15 or higher, because I sometimes see that, and I'll raise a red flag next time I see that in the construction.
Yeah, and that being said, I mean, just to be very clear, 5% is a really rough average. I'm not surprised when I see a 10 or 15% premium in some cases, certainly in hardwood products, where the availability may not be as significant, especially in certain geographies. So that's still a very real possibility. I would be very surprised to see 15% premium in dimensional lumber. I would say, again, in all but a few geographies, you should be able to get a domestic FSC certified dimensional lumber.
Sure. Okay, we only have 2 minutes left. Matt, are there any quick questions from the floor before we close out?
We do not have any, so everyone is kind of quiet today.
Okay. All right. Corey, you want a closing remark? I know you've done an excellent job presenting FSC's certification system here.
Well, great. Thank you. No, it's a great opportunity to be out there in front of the CSI members and those who are involved in specifying for building projects and paying attention to the issues of sustainability and responsible sourcing. I think it's the time has come to pay attention to these issues, and FSC and others out there are finally reaching a scale where we can provide that product to you all. I mean, it doesn't mean we still don't have more work ahead of us as that interest grows, but it again is a very, very exciting time for all of us committed to forest conservation. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Corey. We're going to sign off for this month.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Good day.